Hello everyone. Today we're going to be discussing the vegetable shortening candle. Now, if you've done any research on YouTube, you'll know that there are a bunch of people out there telling you that this is the forever candle. It's going to last forever. No, it won't. Some will say it'll last more than 50 days. Now, I believe those individuals are considering making multiple candles out of one of those really big jugs of Crisco, but I still don't see 50 days. I do see longer than an average candle. I did do a little experiment. I created one of these candles and I burnt it for about 4 days, about 10 to 12 hours a day, and only about a quarter of the candle got burnt up. And that is pretty good because normally I would have used up one of those little Walmart candles in less time than that. So put your seatbelts on and let's go ahead and create this candle. The first thing I'm doing is showing you what you need to make the candle. Of course, you need all vegetable shortening. It doesn't have to be Crisco. I am putting a scent into this because I like scented candles. And of course, you need a cheap candle. You're going to have the Crisco, but of course, you need the candle to do the burning and a jar to put all this in. Now, I do include a lid. These lids are clean, they're just old. The first thing I do is take the Crisco and put it within a measuring cup so I can melt it in the microwave. Why do you want to melt it? Well, if you put Crisco in its solid form, you're going to have air pockets, and that's going to affect how the candle burns. So you most definitely want to warm up the Crisco. It doesn't have to be so hot you can fry chicken in it. It just has to be melted. So that's what I'm doing here, and I do believe this takes a couple of shots because as it melts down, of course, I'll need to put more in it. Now, like I was saying, you could put scent in this, which we will. You can also take some food coloring and color the candle if you want, and buy a matching candle for the inner part, which you'll see soon. And what I'm doing right now is I've run to the microwave to go ahead and microwave out that vegetable oil. One thing I failed to do, and I'm quite lucky here, is I failed to heat up my jars. You want to be careful with jars because you can crack the glass. What you see me doing here is I'm measuring the candle. I don't need it to be as big as it currently is. I need to chop it down in size a little bit. And you'll soon see that the size I chose was still a little too big, but it didn't matter because once you start burning it, it all works out in the end. I'm just scoring them, getting them ready. And no worries, I'll speed up this part of the video. And here I am with the melted Crisco. And like I mentioned, I didn't warm up the jar, which I really should have done. But here I'm just going to go ahead and pour it in and more than likely refill up my my measuring cup so I can go ahead and put more in there. And it only filled up a little less than half. So here, as you see, I'm filling it up again. Yes, I could have used a bigger measuring cup. Sorry about the tremor. As I mentioned in earlier videos, I do have one. It makes life interesting sometimes, but I can still get stuff done. I'm going to go ahead and use that shortening. There's nothing wrong with it. And as I fill this up, I'll go ahead and put it back in the microwave. Now be careful when you pull this out of the microwave. It is going to be pretty hot, even if you don't do it to boiling. And I'm heading back to the microwave. I'll speed up the film so you won't have to sit here and watch dead space. And here is the remaining oil. Then we'll go ahead and add to the jar. I've already added oil to it, so I wasn't too worried about the heat issue. And don't quite have enough yet. But in this case, what I'm doing is taking the actual vegetable shortening container and tossing it in the microwave for a minute or two and seeing about getting out the dregs, if you will, of the vegetable shortening. What you see me doing here is touching the side of the jar. I do want to add scent, but you can't add scent in while the oil is that hot, because what happens is the scent just burns off and you don't get that wonderful scent you wanted. And here's the oil, the remaining oil out of the container. It still won't be quite enough, so I'll have to do a little extra, but we're getting there. That's the longest part of this, is actually filling up the jars. You could put it all in a pot and melt everything down and add it that way, but I just chose to use the microwave because I honestly didn't want to dirty up a pot. And here I'm getting out some more Crisco. This is actually name brand stuff. I found it interesting that the color of the name brand Crisco was a lot lighter than the store brand, but it was still works. I am actually making two candles. My eldest loves the scent of pine, so I'm making him a candle with the pine needle scent, and I'm making one for myself. So that's why you're going to see me put in a lot more shortening into this measuring cup. It's not only for that one jar you see within the screen. goes the rest of the oil for that one candle, and then of course I'll turn it to the other candle. I didn't fill these all the way to the top, so when I push the actual candle in, there's going to be a little extra, but these are for my family, so I'm not worried about them being actually very pristine or worry about perfectionism. And here I'm looking to add more so I can fill up the second jar. Now, one thing you'll see after I do the second jar is I'm going to shut down everything and wait for the oil to cool a bit. Like I mentioned before, that if you put scent in it right now, it's going to burn off. So what I normally do is if I can touch the side of the jar and leave my hand there for 5 to 10 seconds, I think it's cooled off enough. And it did work out pretty well. Both my candles do come out with pretty decent scent. Could you do color? Yes, of course. Go get yourself some food coloring. Put some drops in. Start off slow a little bit and then add as you want to deepen the color. And be aware that if you have something like what you're seeing here, the yellow shortening, if you put blue in it, you're probably going to wind up with a green color. So play around with that a little bit. But yeah, you can put coloring in it. And you don't necessarily have to wait for it to cool down. Just put it in while it's hot. Mix it up and get the color you want. And then as it cools down a bit more, then you can add the scent. What I decided to do here was to put a little extra shortening in the actual jar. Now you have to realize that jar is hot. By putting in that shortening, I'm helping everything cool down a little faster without actually putting it in the refrigerator. So that's going to cool down a bit, and I'll do the same thing to the other one. Sorry about the view of my arm, but I was just trying to pour some stuff in. It's the same principle when you work with chocolate. If you want it to get it to be that nice glossy shade, you've got to bring down the temperature, so you put a little fresh chocolate in it. Same idea, you're tempering basically. And you can see that the stuff I put in that one jar is already melted. What I'm not showing you as part of this video, I did take my scent and put about a teaspoon into each one of the candles. That was after the candle itself not warmed, but cooled enough that I didn't fear everything burning off. After I fill up these jars, the next thing to do is to close them off and stick them in the fridge or the refrigerator or the freezer and let them solidify a bit, because it's when it solidifies that makes the candle easier to stand up within everything. So here I'm finishing up, and as soon as we cut to the next video, you're going to see the candle after it's come out. In my case, the freezer, I think I left it in there for 15 minutes. And here is the finished product. This already has the scent in it, and I chose not to give it a color. Now I'm taking that cut candle and I'm just basically pushing it down into the shortening. and it'll start burning the candle, and when it reaches the shortening, it'll use the shortening as a form of fuel and continue to burn, and it does burn slower. So if you like what you see, please give us a thumbs up, and if you really like the content, please subscribe. I look forward to talking to you again soon.